for a
People
moment.
could be
Two pieces of people.
Yeah, the recreation's gonna get going, they got kids to take care of tomorrow.
Okay, so Article 42, to see if the town will authorize the Board of Parks and Recreation to conduct fundraising and support the capital and or operating and programming costs for the Belgrade Recreation Department. Fundraising proceeds up to $85,000 will be applied to the reduction of the taxes and revenues above this amount to be placed in the Recreation Equipment and Repair Reserve.
Make that motion.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Seeing none. I didn't intend to vote. All in favor?
Budget committee,
5-0.
6-0.
Thank you. Now we'll go back to the regular, we're going back to number 22.
Thank you. Goodbye,
Thank you.
Phil.
Okay, where were we? Now we're back to Article 22, the solid waste. Okay, Article 22, see if the town will raise $247,430 and appropriate $25,000 from anticipated revenue from solid waste operations for a total request of $272,430. In addition, place unspent funds into the solid waste capital reserve account and or any revenue shortfall be taken from the solid waste capital reserve account to cover the overage. The current balance of the solid waste capital reserve is $43,953.97.
Want to move the article?
I'll second it.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Any discussion on this?
Yeah, we just discovered we skipped over a line when Melanie and I were going over it, and there's an additional $7,500 that needs to be taken out of this request, because we over budgeted $7,500. It should have been taken out of our skid steer repair line, which we already completed, and the $7,500 is no longer needed in that line, so that would make the new total $264,930.
Have you got any other ones you want to do that?
I'm sure we'll find something. Let's. Well, I mean, that's the $7,500 from your appropriations.
Okay, so we want to accept that article? Oh, go ahead.
There's a difference between what we looked at last time and this one. It was actually increased by $13,300.
That's the that's all in wages and benefits, with the increase in minimum wage, health insurance, increase in the pay of our second person who is now was just hired. So we went from a $10.50 an hour person to a $14 an hour person who's now working with us 2 weeks. I'm sorry, 2 days out of the week. 13. I'm sorry, I apologize.
With a 50%, 50% increase.
Either way, the wages, yeah, and some of our hours have increased since we lost the Boy Scouts also. We're also doing the newspaper now along with everything else. That's minimal, but it's all in wages and benefits. So the wages and benefits went from.
Sorry, that stuff in the, when we were just here a couple weeks ago, that was a part of that budget? Because that's a big amount.
No, we just got that, within the past couple of weeks, everything's
Right,
been
and we didn't know
finalized.
at the last meeting exactly what we were going to be. I was under the impression that the raises was under discussion. So I didn't go through everybody's increase.
Okay.
There was
So we went from 77,000 to 90,000. There's 13,000.
Okay.
And that's the only increase in the budget.
So what's the bottom line number now?
264,930.
I'm sorry?
264,930.
Any other questions?
The body of the article will change the numbers.
Yes.
Move to change that.
Yeah. We're gonna
And move the amendment. I'll second the change.
we're moving in then. Okay.
You moved it. I moved it.
All right,
Second.
you second. So we're gonna act on the amendment, which is gonna be 264, 930. So, any discussion on that? Not? Oh, how
Are you discussing the amendment?
Yes. Okay. Entertain a vote on that. All in favor of that? Thank you. Now we're back to the original article, which is going to read what's that? As amended. Go ahead.
I don't wanna take a lot of time here, but I guess I'm trying to get a handle on what's happening with the recycling process. And are we doing anything to analyze the cost with the impact of the new recycling process and how it's, you know, what, would it be cheaper just to throw everything in the hopper except newspaper and cardboard, which is easy to pull out, or, I mean, I don't know. I'm wondering what's going on with that.
Then,
Suffice it to say that the transfer station committee, working with Ken, regularly review all these prices and do the analysis to ensure that there's a benefit to Belgrade in doing this. So, I think that's the short answer. You could get details ad nauseum, not ad nauseum, I'm sorry.
I do it, no, I said it,
But you could get a lot of details from the committee and from Ken.
Okay, I mean, one of the things you're just saying is going up is wages. If we weren't spending as much time trying to figure out what was what and what was which, we wouldn't need as many people.
Well, that's all fair, but the transfer station committee
Just looking at that.
is looking at it all the time.
Thank you.
Throw it all into the hopper?
Look, the externalities issue is a huge issue that you're raising, and it's not something for the budget meeting, but I'm sure that all of that is addressed in some fashion.
So the committee.
let's get back to the article. If we could do that at a select board meeting, I want to try to get through this tonight. Thank you.
Or I encourage people to attend the transfer station recycling committee meetings where we had one last night. Jack was our only audience member. Excuse me.
Mike was also.
Mike too, Mike. Anyway,
So we're back to the article. It's gonna be, the amount's gonna be $264,930. So, any more discussion on this? If not, I'm gonna entertain a vote. All in favor? Looks like 5.
Budget committee? 6-0.
Thank you. Article 23.
okay, Article 23, to see if the town will raise and appropriate $20,000 to provide a concrete pad to level and stabilize 3 recycling storage containers located at the transfer station and recycling facility, and to allow for their proper use. Note, due to the current conditions, these containers are listing and need to be leveled for safety reasons and to allow for their proper use.
Make that motion.
Move.
Yeah,
Second. Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Jack?
Is the transfer station committee or anybody else looking at the option of not using the containers there, but putting up a shed-type building and operating from a building, both of which would need a concrete pad, but maybe of slightly different design?
Yeah, yes, we are working on that. So this would be a beginning phase. We are discussing whether or not we're gonna try to spread that out over a few years, I believe. We kind of touched on that in last night's meeting, how we're gonna go about that. But this pad that we're pouring now was, I asked them when Tom Daniels drew up the plans for it to make it so that we could put a building on it, so it would support a building. So it was engineered to support a building in the future sometime, yes.
Should we go ahead and put a pad in first, or should we get the design for what we'd like to have and come back and do the whole thing? That's what.
Well, regardless, for now, we're gonna need the pad, because currently the containers that are on it are sinking into the ground and falling over. We almost can't get the doors open right now. So we need to do something right away because they're not supporting the weight of the recyclables that we
So you
store
need to
in
do
them.
earthwork before you put the pad in.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and this includes the earthwork and the pad being poured.
And this pad,
And to support the current trails that we have on there now, yes.
this pad would be designed to be suitable for a shed type building.
Correct,
And traffic inside with a vehicle.
correct,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Denny? Oh, okay, never mind, moving on.
And just to point out, Tom Daniels is doing the engineering largely for
Correct.
free. He's a member of the committee,
He's a member of the committee.
and potentially, we could have him, expand his engineering to just the pad to,
To the entire
potential
building, that's,
And he kinda has to do that anyway to spec the pad for a building. So we'll have that work done also.
Dan?
This isn't something that can be done under the existing capital reserve.
43,000, I believe, is in
The
the.
article right before it shows you.
One fifty-three?
43.
No, 43.
43.
The question is, as I understand it, is can't you take that money,
Right.
ask for appropriation from the?
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Dan.
I would rather not, only because that money is really, for equipment. If the skid steer breaks down, we're looking at almost $100,000 if that goes down. I mean, we never know, the hopper, if we have an issue with we have to replace the motor, that diesel motor. The equipment,
It could be that we could take 10,000.
10,000 of it out
and raise another 10,000. There's a way to play with it potentially. Does anybody wanna make a?
Howard's good.
Just a formatting question, comment, could we please not break up articles from one page to another?
This will all be
Okay,
written
just, this is all about.
for this purpose.
So we could amend the article to take some funds out of that, if not the whole amount.
And you can do that on the floor if you need to.
Good.
Or we can do it when we get to the, when we have to go back and look at
So we
this.
can do it right now?
We can.
I mean, sure, it's another $10,000 out of, that's what we wanna do.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I guess I'd make a motion that we amend the article to appropriate $20,000 out of the solid waste capital reserve fund.
We're gonna appropriate the whole 20,000 or just 10,000 of it and ask to raise?
I feel
the
comfortable
10,000?
taking the 20,000. I'm open to
I'll second that.
discussion. I feel comfortable taking it out. If we get in a bind, we'll have to deal with that in a different way, but it still leaves us
23,000.
plus we're putting funds into that in the coming year, potentially, somewhat.
You got it moved and seconded.
Okay?
So now we are gonna vote on the amendment.
Amendment.
Any questions on the amendment before we move on?
Restate what the amendment.
No, we're gonna vote on it.
We're about to.
We're about to, I'm just asking a question before we, so read your amendment again, Tom.
To see if the town will appropriate $20,000 from the solid waste capital reserve fund to provide a concrete pad to level and stabilize 3 recycling storage containers located at the transfer station and recycling facility and allow for their proper use. Note, due to the current conditions, these containers are listed and need to be level for safety reasons.
So that's been moved and seconded. So is there any discussion on that? If there isn't, I didn't entertain a vote. All in favor? Okay. 5, zip. You guys wanna, you don't vote on it, you vote on it. Okay. Now we're gonna go back to the original article. We're taking the money out of the capital reserve. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As amended. So I didn't, any discussion on that? Seeing none, I didn't entertain a vote. All in favor? 5,
Which committee? 6-0?
thank you. Article 24,
Oh, yes, of course. To proceed with voting on the following question, shall the town of Belgrade vote to raise and appropriate an additional $21,267 as its portion of the cost of constructing an additional 500 linear feet of new sidewalks and increase road widths in order to create legal parking locations throughout the Belgrade Lakes, Belgrade Village area for a total cost of $60,600. Question, I'll move the question.
I'll second that.
Second it. Any discussion on this?
So
This
where's-
really isn't an option.
It really isn't. I don't
Okay.
think it is. So, I entertain a vote, all in favor?
Where's the rest of the money come from?
The street, that's the sidewalks, remember, there was $10,000 each year, plus or minus, I can't remember. the exact amount. That added up to 39,000 plus or minus, that was $40,000. And that was, for purpose of sidewalks.
So
And that
do,
was raised back in 1999, 2000, 2000.
so do we have an article that allows us to appropriate that money out of that fund to match,
I think
to
that-
come to this fund and equal the $60,600?
I think that was done in past actions, because what we needed to do, when we signed the contract with the state, was, they told us how much additional we needed. And this was the difference between the money that had been targeted for those sidewalks, and, the extension.
Do we need to put that wording into the article at all? That basically, this is basically a,
Well, this is a floor, so we can certainly address that on the floor.
I don't know if my
Should
nominate
a
question.
note be in there? Like there's a note on this last one, should there be a note that
If you want a note on there, we can put a
the
note.
difference comes from an article that was passed such and such a date of such and such an amount? You know, that would just answer a lot of questions.
I think we definitely wanna have the information with it, because it's gonna come out.
Yeah, it's gonna come out.
This is a this is to finalize a commitment that we've made
That's right.
with X amount of money coming out of this sidewalk fund, and then this is the balance.
Right,
That's what I was
That's
talking
right,
about.
absolutely right.
The town raised the money in 3 annual $10,000 increments, and the rest of it was investment.
Yeah, oh, I remember that.
So it's
We have
just a matter of answering questions before they get asked, so somebody doesn't get.
we have to offer an amendment for that, or we just go ahead?
Well, I guess you kinda do, because you're adding to the,
Or you can answer it on the floor, I mean, either or, I mean.
Well, what I probably do is put a conflict with the rest of them, the capital reserve account. I just
We could just put
need
the-
to know that, just put in parentheses, the
Capital reserve contains X amount of money.
that might work, that'll work.
Let's do that.
this article makes it look like there's a like we're matching something else. It says as its portion, like this is the town of Belgrade's
Well, it
portion.
is the town's portion. The town's portion is $60,600 for that street, those sidewalks. That's our portion. Matched with the state, which is providing the rest of the money, in the,
Well, the Lakes,
Belgrade Lake Village.
the Lakes Village, the
Yeah,
Village
right.
Association.
So,
Bulk of it.
this is our portion as allocated through the contract that we signed with the state.
Should we put in wording there that this is the final portion?
We can,
Well, that's
so
what
it'll
I,
be complete.
you know, because if we're saying, here's the total cost, this total cost is the town of Belgrade, this total cost is the town of Belgrade's portion.
Yeah.
$60,600. But what is remaining is $21,267, so we're asking permission to raise and appropriate that
Yeah.
to go with the previous funds for our total. Just the wording of it makes it look like, that's why I was like, well, where's the rest coming up from? Sort of like the dams committee, this
Well-
much is our portion.
What we can do is put current balance in the sidewalk fund, or whatever that fund is called, is X amount, or the capital reserve is X amount.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Just make that clear.
Any other questions? Article 25?
To see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $479,898 for general maintenance, plowing, sanding, and salt for town roads as follows, with any unexpected unexpended balance to lapse back into the public works, road maintenance, and paving capital reserve account. The current balance of the public works, road maintenance, and paving capital reserve is $53,587.52.
I'll go down to
See
the
it.
bottom. Okay, yep.
Okay. So we're on 25?
Yes.
Okay.
You wanna do the general maintenance and all that, no, we don't have to. We got- say-
Read that, general maintenance, 11,734, plowing and sanding, 246,564, sand and salt, 121,600, total article is 479,898.
Okay, somebody wanna accept the item?
Yes, second.
Is there any discussion on this?
It's gone down. So,
That's good then.
well, Morris, where did it come down, go down from? Because everybody else's seems to be going up. We're doing wages and insurance, everybody else's is up, and yours is down.
Well, it's from 2018, it's up, isn't it?
From what we have for Article 25 in the previous one,
Yeah.
general maintenance was 115,500. Now general maintenance is 111,734.
Is it $150 increase? Because we took out $150 for transportation.
No, it's 3,000. 3,764.
Question?
Hang on, we're trying to answer the one we got. Unless you've got the answer to that, Jack. You have the answer to her
It
question?
stayed, other than $150
Okay,
in
stay
public
on
works
it.
stayed the same,
Thank you.
and the rest of them went up. I don't know what, because I
Would
don't
it
have
be
the
the
old,
wages?
oh, it could be their wages.
The health insurance?
Yeah.
Well, we don't.
have
No,
the
no,
health
they went
insurance, so
down.
it would be wages.
That's what I'm saying, is it didn't go up, it went down by $3,766.
I don't know why it went down.
Do you remember anything about that?
It was 115, I believe.
Right, but this number isn't 115, it's 111,734.
After the budget meeting.
That's what I'm
I
asking.
don't know, if I have the budget worksheet here, we could go back to that if we want to.
Maybe that's why I don't have the newest, I didn't have the newest one. I thought that his budget was staying the same.
That would spell that out now.
Oh, I know what happened. We increased it a bit for salt and sand, I think. There was a minor increase there. And then there was an increase, I forgot about this, there was an increase for, the work you were doing, maintenance on the roads. Remember that, Jack, that discussion we had, bumping those up a little bit?
But
He's
the-
asking for less.
Oh,
Right,
well, that's the
those-
only thing I can remember.
Right, those numbers, Denny, from the last budget meeting that we had, and this one are the same. The
He
one
probably,
that's
the
different
last
is
budget meeting, I
maintenance.
probably had those numbers. I hadn't touched the public works budget and for the worksheet, the actual one in the computer. So Dennis probably gave you the numbers. And then when I put them in the computer and used those numbers, I didn't have the most current numbers. It's the only thing I can think of. Because you say his budget went up, but I don't have in the computer that his budget went up at all.
But she, I can't remember now.
Right, so that's why I'm looking at it went down this time, because I don't have the increase in the budget.
So,
Satisfied with that?
Well, no, Morris has in his head that his general maintenance budget is 115,000, not
If that's the case, then I
111.
need to know what the newest numbers are.
So, and
I'm trying to get the whole copy. You sent out. I haven't done it.
But you don't have the newest one in your book, but I have it. Which is right here. But my numbers, I'm guessing, are not increased from what you guys wanted increased, so I don't have the numbers from the public works. But you guys worked out the budget, I mean, your meeting.
So where in the detail pages is the 111,734 come from?
It's not, it's public works as a department.
Public Works what?
I put it as a whole department, it's public works and plowing and sanding together. I didn't-
So is this something we need to take a further look at?
I would say
Come back to? I don't wanna put wrong numbers in there.
No, I don't either.
So, I make a motion that we probably table this one and come back to it, probably a regular board meeting or something. Just, we don't have the right numbers, and no sense in, Jack?
Before you leave the article, I don't think there's anything in here about any winter maintenance of the sidewalks that will be in place by 2019, 2020.
I think you're correct.
And just bring it up, because they'll be there.
Yeah, that's another hidden cost.
Well,
Go ahead.
if everyone will remember, in an attempt to resolve the issue of additional costs for winter maintenance, I had drafted a road article, for the town of Belgrade, traffic control. And in that, it was a measure that would allow what would require residents or businesses attached to their property being right next to the sidewalks, to maintain the sidewalks within so many whatever hours and stuff. A lot of towns require residents and businesses to maintain the sidewalks so that the cost doesn't go on to the municipality. That article, that ordinance could come back. That's the way we could address it, or you could address it at some future, with a different approach, but that was my approach. That was something that was defeated at the time by I think the board essentially said, no, we're not gonna go forward with that at this time. But, and that they didn't have to address it until the sidewalks were built, is what I remember from that board meeting, but
I think you're right.
Well, this whole budget is anticipatory for next year. So I'll bring it up because when the snow starts to fly next year, the phone will start to ring.
Well, we do the same thing that did while the ones were up there this year. Fill 'em in.
we did sign an agreement with the DOT, when we signed the contract, that required maintenance of the cycle. When I say we, I mean,
You did.
The town has.
I signed on
You
behalf of the
signed
board.
That's why we bought that 4-foot snowball for you. Won't take long.
No, sir.
All right.
So
We're gonna table this one.
so
Jason's got some.
I think
Jason?
I just had a quick question about the difference between this used downtown Augusta sidewalks. I think all of the businesses are responsible for their portion of sidewalk. Is that not applicable here?
What's the question?
So the downtown district, you're talking about sidewalks downtown, correct?
In the building.
All right. So is that different than, is the usage different, is the sidewalk, the purpose of the sidewalk different from the purpose of the sidewalks in downtown Augusta? Where I believe all of the tenants downtown Augusta are responsible for their own sidewalk portion.
Well, that's what I was saying. The ordinance that we had drafted would have required that of the people adjacent to the sidewalk.
Right.
But that ordinance was not approved to go to town vote. So that ordinance is not.
Okay,
in effect.
sorry, I apologize. Yeah.
Okay, let's go back. Let's take a vote on tabling this. All in favor of tabling this article? Guy, yes. No, table. Article, you want me to go to the other one?
Yes, that's what these are.
which number was that?
36.
36.
Okay, we're gonna move to Article 36.
Which is the games.
Dan Article. Okay.
Just a minute, we'll be right back.
Article 36, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $44,800 as Belgrade's share of 2019 operating and maintenance costs of the region's 3 dams, Belgrade Lakes, Wings Mills, and Salmon Lake. Total projected cost in 2019 equals $80,000. Lone share equals $21,600. Oakland share equals $13,600. $20,000 is for the ongoing annual maintenance of the 3 dams, and $60,000 is to address the growing problems with wooden crib structure of the Wings Mill Dam controlling Long Pond.
Request is 44,800.
Yes, request is for 44,800.
No more question?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Now it's open for discussion. Seeing, oh, wait a minute.
Well, we talked about this before. Does Mount Vernon have any? Have we talked to them about any?
We've sent them a letter asking them to, if they could get involved.
Yeah.
They have not responded.
Their portion of shoreline frontage is down, I think it's 3.4% or something like that.
It's small.
Small.
Okay.
We're also gonna send a letter to Sydney too, just to see.
Do they have any frontage?
Yeah, it's,
It's all in the stream also.
yeah, 2.4 miles or something, very few residents.
Very small, okay, just curious.
And the issue with Sydney though is that the dam really doesn't impact their lake level, it's the dam downstream.
Yeah, okay.
So they don't have a real incentive.
Okay, anybody else got any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a vote, all in favor? Thank you.
Budget committee? 6-0.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go back to, Article 26,
It's a long one.
which is a long one. Okay. Shall the town approve the following? Approve a capital project consisting of road improvement and paving as proposed by the Board of Select Persons, the board, and on the terms that the board deems appropriate as detailed below. Appropriate $1,390,585, including costs of financing, to fund the project as follows. Raise $402,000, $400,000 for direct costs of the road project, and $2,600 for legal fees through taxation, and obtain up to $923,350 from the proceeds of a loan or bond on terms deemed appropriate by the town treasurer and the chair of the board. Authorize the town treasurer and chair of the board to issue general obligation securities of the town, including temporary notes, in anticipation of the sale thereof, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $923,350 to partially fund the appropriation. Delegate to the town treasurer and the chair of the board the authority and discretion to fix the dates, maturities, interest rates, denominations, calls for redemption with or without premium, form, and other details of said securities, including authority to execute and are due to significant price increases in asphalt, increasing interest rates, and a move to provide for longer lasting and better riding road services by placing a 3-inch surface on the roads versus a 2.5-inch road surface in previous years. Financial statement, total town indebtedness, outstanding balance of bonds previously issued, $538,000. Bonds issued and authorized and unissued, 0. Anticipated amount of bonds to be issued, $923,350. Validity, the validity of the bonds and voters' ratification of the bond may, I believe that's not, be affected by any errors in the above estimates. The ratification by the voters is nonetheless conclusive, and the validity of the bonds is not affected by reason of the variance. Signed, Melanie Alexander, Treasurer, Town of Belgrade. Below is a listing of roadways to be worked on if the above article is approved. All work estimates are based on present funding. If the estimated funding is lower than the final bid amount, then the town will not expend any money more than the estimated maximum provided in this article. Consequently, the scope of work for the Wings Mills Road will be reduced so that the estimated funding is not exceeded. If the final bid amount for this project is less than the estimated funding, only the amount of money necessary to complete the project will be bonded, i.e. the town will not bond for funds that are not needed to complete this project as presented below. Project detail, the following listed roads comprise the 3-year paving project for years 2019, 2020, and 2021 to be completed in calendar year 2019. Bartlett Road, including all road improvement and paving for 1.64 miles at $351,881. Dunn Road, including all road improvement and paving for 3.10 miles at $647,707. Wings Mills Road, including all road improvement and paving for 1.42 miles at $323,762. Estimated total road improvement and paving costs 3 years for 6.16 miles equals $1,323,350. Estimated bonding interest 3.5% for a 2-year maturity equals $64,635. Estimated legal costs equal $2,600. The total requested for calendar year 2019 through 2021 equals $1,390,585.
Thank you.
Move.
Move, do I have a second?
Second.
Move to second. Now, here comes the discussion. Go ahead, Mike.
On the third bullet point,
402,600.
is that correct? That's what it should be.
What's the total amount of the bond?
Okay, let's make that change.
Thank you.
Okay, Melanie?
I would authorize the town treasurer and the board of select persons in all of these things, the chairperson on the board is not the board. So I feel like these pieces need to come before the board needs to sign off on them, not just one person.
My question is, why wouldn't the town manager?
Well, it's the treasurer, but it would be under the direction of the
Town manager.
That's the case, all.
It would, the
There's
board,
certain things that she has the authority to do. Legal.
the board would have to grant that authority to the town manager anyway, wouldn't they?
Yes. We usually do anyways. Yes.
Well, we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know if I want, yeah. I don't have a problem doing board, if that's,
Well, I don't care what you do, rarely do we do anything at all, I'll
Right.
bring it to the board, let me know what's happening, what the bids are, you accept the bids, and then we move forward. So it's not something that we're gonna go out, accept the bids and move forward, so it's up to you.
Then I'd like to see the amendment made, the board of select persons goes to the town treasurer and the board of select persons, everybody on the board side.
okay, wanna give it a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay. The only thing you're gonna do is add the board and approval, like we always do anyway.
So are we changing it in the wording of the chair of the board, or?
So we're gonna change authorize the town treasurer and the board of select persons to issue general obligation.
The paperwork, as I understand it, the legal paperwork only has the chair of the board signature needed.
But that, the board will give the chair,
That's right, that's.
Okay.
it's okay to do it, so that's,
Okay, so we're gonna
that's
change,
what we're looking for.
we're gonna change that throughout.
Yep.
Okay, is there anything else, anybody else got any into this? Chad?
Couple of things, I'm on the road committee, and I would just like to express my viewpoint in having this presented this way, as a 3-year program rather than individual roads. For years and years, I've heard griping about, well, we're not keeping up with our roads. We did a 3-year program 3 years ago, and it's finished now, and we have most of the main virtually all of them in good shape. There are some problems with other short roads, like in the village area, Hewlin Road, School Street area, Gupta Road is one that needs work and needs watching. But the big main roads that service the most people should be in pretty good shape, both in the north end and the south end. And to me, the focus, and road programs really shouldn't be looked at just 1 year at a time. They're long-term projects, they're long-term considerations, if you're going to do it economically and do it right. When these roads are done, I think the focus of the town should shift more toward pavement preservation, holding in place what we've done, particularly on the main roads, and concentrating on some of the smaller areas in town that really need work. And I hope that that kind of philosophy carried forward would reduce our annual cost per road mile overall. That's where I would be coming from, where I have been coming from on the road committee, and I hope this is carried out.
Thank you.
Plus, I'm guessing that the, adding the half an inch of surface, which this stipulates, would aid that.
Yeah,
as well.
It should.
Sure.
The other thing I might add is, I would like to see in the process of requesting bids, that somehow we can tease out of qualified contractors the cost of doing these roads as individual roads versus bundling as 3 roads. Because that difference should start to show how much, if any, saving there is in contracting for a large program versus 3 separate small programs. And I don't know any other way to find that difference.
Melanie?
Well, I guess I feel, I'm a little foggy here on how we have coupled this in here with obtain up to $923,350 from the proceeds of a loan or a bond. Like, in the past, don't we generally know how we're gonna proceed with something, and for an amount that big, what we've done in the past when we bundled the project is list out the project and ask the townspeople's permission to get the bond for these projects. Sort of looks like we're putting too much stuff in there, and it's so wordy that nobody is gonna follow it.
Well,
And they're just gonna say yes to it, and I feel like,
well, I mean, the question about loaning or bonding,
yeah,
that question is, I don't know what's gonna be cheap, all right? I put a 3.5% bond in there, a little over 2 months ago. It's been kind of said, well, that's about right. I don't know if it's gonna be 4% or what. The Federal Reserve is doing some things. The bond increases, the market increases in the bond rates. That's I'm assuming 3.5. We might be able to get a loan better. So we put the wording in there to allow us some flexibility. We can get the lower prices. The last, if you look at the 2016 town report, there were 2.5 pages. And we basically talked to the road committee and said, we should reduce the number of pages to make this simple, so we tried to do it this way. So this is, I think it was at Jack's suggestion, that we need to reduce the amount of material we presented. So we went detail to detail to detail, so we kind of lessened the amount of detail. So we can do it whatever way the board thinks is best. This is what the board committee asked me to draft. So that's what I drafted.
Thank you. Mike, did you have something?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I can just see this being right on the floor of town meeting. People are gonna zone out after paragraph 1. And then they're just gonna wait for when it's time to vote. So nobody's really gonna know what they're voting on this one. It is a lot.
Isn't some of that language, Melanie, isn't some of that language a legal requirement? If we're going to do bonding at all, we have to word an article in a certain way to back up that borrowing.
Anybody else got anything you want to add?
This is one that would require, I think, a pretty good explanation from the appropriate person to explain some of this stuff.
And that's why we were gonna ask Ricky to do that.
Thank you. I can tell him.
Now, we've talked about that. we've talked about that in the road committee as well. I'll certainly be able to provide answers to questions. And I believe the road committee itself would be supplementing those answers as necessary. But we've talked about how best to explain it, how to approach the subject, all of that in the road committee, including why, 3 inches versus 2.5 or whatever. All of that is something that we need to explain and be prepared to do.
Yeah, and I'm all for us coupling projects. 9-10 years ago, I think is when we first started this, we used to pick a road every year. We were gonna do these roads. And then we started coupling them together. I'm all for, let's put together a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan, and this is how we're gonna execute it. I just feel like 2 pages is really wordy for one article.
If you look at the 2016 report, you'll see that it was cut down.
Okay, Howard?
Wasn't the rationale for all of this the fact that we figured that we were gonna save money by doing it because the cost of asphalt was gonna keep going up each year?
Correct.
And would there be some benefit to having some information relative to proving that?
We have all of that information.
Okay, I'm not advocating to increase the size of the article, but I'm just saying that.
We believe that the actual RFPs will come in below this, but you don't want to tip your hand, so to speak. It's a bid process. So we have the cost increase in asphalt since the last approach project. A large part of the increase on a cost per mile basis is due to the asphalt increase, a significant increase. And then there's the bond increase. The last time that we bonded a package of this size, it was 1.1%, 1.15%. We're looking at 3.5 or 4.
So is it still gonna be cheaper to do it this way or to do one road a year?
Well, this is, as you heard Jack present, this is the approach that the road committee felt was best for the town in a long-term approach to upgrading and preserving the road. So.
Okay, anybody else? Seeing none, I would entertain a vote on this.
So first we vote on the amendment.
Oh, yeah, yes, we did, that's right, I forgot. Been so long, I forgot. All right, we need to vote on the amendment first.
The amendment is only to change the wording, chair of the board, the select board.
Okay, so that's it. Now we'd entertain a vote. For the amendment, all in favor?
Oh, and the changing in the amount in the initial part.
Yes.
To 400,
Adding the
402, 600. So 2 parts to the amendment.
Okay, I guess we got it now.
Now we're done.
All right, now I'd entertain a vote. All in favor? 3 and 2. 3 for, 2 against. I believe, am I right, Lynn? You're right. Okay,
So that's for the amendment, not for the actual article.
Are we voting on an amendment?
oh, yeah, no.
We don't vote on the amendment.
Now we're gonna vote on the article, I'm sorry. Now we're gonna vote on the article as written, with those changes. So,
We have to do the article again, or?
nah, you ain't gonna read it all over again.
Okay.
We remember the words quite well. All right, without any more questions, you're just changing,
I'll move the article as amended.
yes,
I'll second that.
okay.
Any discussion on that?
I guess there's no discussion on that, so if not, all in favor? Like I said, 3 and 2,
Was it 3 and 2?
yes.
Budget committee? Tim, are you, yes? So it's 6-0?
Thank you. What, would you have 6, no? Thank you.
Okay. We're moving on.
Article 27.
Article 27, see if the town will raise and
One
appropriate.
quick question before we leave this. If this article is defeated, what are we gonna do for paving, if any, for this year? We'll handle that on the floor?
You may have to.
Don't have to handle it. Well, I don't know how else to address that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Moving on to Article 27, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $402,000 $600, $400,000 for direct costs of the road project, and $2,600 for legal fees for the road improvement and paving project as outlined in Article 26, with all unexpended balances to lapse back into the Public Works, Road Maintenance, and Paving Capital Reserve. The request is $402,600. Move the question. I'll move the question.
Second, moved and seconded?
Can you reread 26?
Yeah, I wanna hear that again. Melanie, go ahead.
Article 26 already asked to raise $402,600, so Article 27 should only be to appropriate the sum. Because otherwise we're raising and appropriating $805,000.
Well, I'm gonna appropriate it, not raise it, correct?
Not the
I
radio.
didn't realize you did that.
Right, because we already
Okay, so-
said,
We're just gonna,
So you're making a motion to amend the article?
yes.
Yeah,
yes,
Is this true? Yes?
yes.
Yes.
So you're
Take out raise.
raise and,
Raising.
Yes.
okay, so,
Just say, appropriate,
so your motion is to amend the article, correct?
yes.
Okay,
I'll second that motion.
moved and seconded? Yeah, any discussion on that? Being none, all in favor of
The amendment.
amendment? Okay, now we're gonna go back to the original question, the amendment. So, we're just leaving out the will raise and,
No, raising.
well,
Will appropriate.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay. We don't have to do.
The amendment said, changed,
Raise and, you take raise and out, so to see if the town will appropriate the sum of $402,600.
okay.
Cause it's already
We raised it.
raised
I
it
didn't
last
pick
time.
up on
We
that.
raised it in 26.
That was my fault.
Okay, so, I guess any questions on this?
Yeah, why again are we doing this? Because we say in Article 26, raise 402,000, maybe it should be
We have to
402,000.
appropriate.
We have to appropriate it in this one. The other one was to raise it.
Why did
Well,
we
we
do it?
appropriated $1,390,585 in the bullet point above that.
I guess I'm looking for an answer.
I'm trying to figure out why 27 is necessary.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right. Why
Or if the other one should just read raise and appropriate.
It does say.
It does.
Maybe you got
Approve and then appropriate.
It says appropriate, and then it says raise.
Appropriate the full amount, appropriate the $1.3 million, and then it says raise that in this year.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, but I think we did everything inside.
I guess we probably did that way.
Yeah, I almost think we can.
Yeah, so make a motion to remove Article 27.
Okay.
We don't even need it.
All right, I'll second that motion.
I'm sorry about that, I was,
If we don't act on it, we don't have to do anything.
I will make sure that that's the case, but I think that
Just cross it out and move on. Okay, Article 28.
Okay, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $8,500 to purchase 2 radar speed signs. These signs are mobile and can be used for gathering information about our roads and to calm traffic flow in areas in town where we receive speeding complaints. The request is for $8,500.
Okay, move, move.
I'll move the question.
I have a second?
Second up.
Okay, move to second. Open for discussion. Katie?
With the amounts of money that we're raising and so forth, who instigated this? And why? And why?
Denny will take care of that for you.
I receive complaints periodically throughout the summer, and sometimes in the fall, various times in the year, about speeding in certain areas. I do contact the state police or sheriff to try to get signs out. There's a limited number of signs that they can put out. So that's one reason. We have 3 big areas where people will complain about speeding. One's on the West Road.
You're gonna have another one too.
Right, so there's a lot of speeding complaints. So, we try to get signs out by the state police or the, sheriff. I mean, the sheriff is generally who I call, actually. So, there are a limited number of signs. That's one part of it, so I can, so the town can go out and try to calm traffic in those areas. At the same time, these, speeding signs, these warning signs, track the number of cars that go above speed limit by 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, as you set that, above the speed limit. So you can count the number and the time of day. So now, when you call the state police to ask them to enforce on the road, you can say to the state police, we're noticing 20 cars going over 20 miles an hour over the speed limit at this time of day. So then they can better target their efforts on enforcement. So that's a benefit of it. The other thing is, we have not had traffic counts on our roads for years. These can be used to do basic traffic counts on our roads to see how much our roads are being used. Having said all of that, it's a good idea, but if the board and the budget committee feel that it's an item that is more of a want than a need, that's fine with me. I put it in here because I think, based on the number of complaints I've received and all of that, I thought it was an appropriate thing to do in this new technology coming out. So.
Thank you.
Question, is it essential to start with 2 of these signs versus one?
You have to have one on either end of your speed area. So people coming this way or that way, because people don't tell me, well, they're speeding going north or they're speeding going south. They just say they're speeding.
But when Kennebec comes out, they only bring one sign.
I know, but that's the traffic calming. That's the only thing that can.
That answers my question. All right. Alan?
We've talked about this before. We have a state trooper right here in town who has expressed a willingness to work with the town and is willing to come to meetings and willing to do whatever they can do to help us out. And this is in the classification, in my mind, of an absolute want, not a need in any way, shape, or form in this current budget time.
Thank you.
I appreciate what might want to be derived, but.
I don't, look, Howard's got it back. The point is, they're limited in terms of the number of complaints I received, that you can call the state cops and they'll say, well, we're gonna work with you, but it's over there, or it's over there. Same thing I get from the sheriff, it's being used over there. I offered, like I said, I think it's an important thing to do, but in this budgetary period, it's up to the board, in my mind, to decide whether they wanna go forward with it along with the budget committee. I'm not disputing what Howard's saying, I'm just saying.
All right.
Well, 'cause I think, didn't we already authorized the petition that came in from the folks from that area of the West Road to send a petition, draft a letter, and request that the state reduce the speed limit on that.
That's in the works.
Yes.
Baby steps.
Okay, I guess there's no more discussion. Oh, Jason?
Well, I didn't know if it was an option to in a more affordable approach to lease that technology.
I don't know of any companies that are releasing it.
Okay.
Okay. Any more questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a vote on this. All in favor? Don't all put your hands up at the same time? Looks like 5 against.
Okay, so we'll just remove the article from the warrant.
Okay.
Is that the vote?
Yep.
I don't think it's the budget committee.
The budget committee doesn't vote when the select board
So let's
kills the article.
Let's put it next right through.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay, moving right along, Article 29, shall the town raise and appropriate $70,000 as its portion of the cost for a hydrogeologic evaluation of the potential remediation for a number of wells contaminated with salt coming from the salt piles that were previously stored by the town and the Maine Department of Transportation off from that section of Route 135, currently called the Cemetery Road.
Move the question. Move the article.
Just a heads up, they were up there today putting stakes down to the woods. And Dave Stevens' well is perfectly clear, right in that pit. They came and tested it again today. Anyways.
So,
yeah, any questions on this?
it's been moved and seconded.
Yep.
Any discussion?
Melanie?
my discussion is the same as when we had the meeting about it. I feel like this is gonna be much bigger, and this hydrogeologic evaluation is small in its scope, because already from when we first were talking about it, went from 8 to 15. So I think that 70,000 is probably not going to be an appropriate amount, and I would just assume we figure out what the total amount's gonna be. And then
This is just our share.
Well,
our
this is the
of
share
study to
of
see whether or
2000,
not it's gonna help.
this is the share of the study that they're going to do, and the initial well they're gonna drill, and the money they're gonna expend, and the DOT is gonna expend regardless of what we do. They're gonna expend this money in 2019, because I asked that question, said, so what are you asking? And they said, in 2019, we're going to do this study, and obviously it's gonna cost more money down the road, but right now, this is the effort to evaluate the remediation of this, do the hydrogeologic evaluation. So they, when I said, is that all we're gonna be asked for in 2019? They said yes. Having said that, the 70,000, it's obviously gonna cost more, because if they decide to put a distribution system, or if we have to, then those issues come up. I just don't know what to say about that. So this is essentially the hydrogeologic evaluation.
What happens if we don't do this?
I asked that question, because Melanie raised the issue the last meeting.
And the answer?
And the answer was, well, look, we're gonna do this work. And ultimately, we have the ability to go to court. But we don't like doing that, right? But you did sign an agreement, right, that you specified what it specified. I gave you copies of all that information. So that's about the answer I got. So.
Would you sue you for it?
I feel like that if we don't do the study, it's not us going back on the agreement that we had for well remediation. This is a study, and I hate to see us.
It's all part of the remediation goal.
Right, but I hate to see this amount of money get spent, and then they're like, yeah, just kidding, it's not actually gonna fix it. So now we need to evaluate something different. And they clearly said at that meeting that, well, what they originally thought, it might be more than one public water supply. Like, nobody has the answers, but I don't want us to just keep throwing money at it. We're gonna pay for it one way or the other. We're either gonna pay for it with our property taxes that goes towards the state budget, or with our property taxes that goes towards our portion of this budget.
Right. All I can say is, at some point in time, you're gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
And including this evaluation, even if they throw it away.
I'm gonna get Dan.
I just got a quick question, is how do we know that the salt contamination isn't natural and it's coming from those salt piles? Because there's places that have perfectly clear water that should have salt in it.
They've answered the question.
Something about the bromide levels or something, that they tested the salt in various wells.
Yeah,
And
it's almost like the salt, the natural salt has like a DNA signature that's different from road salt, and they've done all those studies.
At least they claim it is.
Well, they claim it is.
Howard?
I'm not a scientist or a hydro whatever it is, but there was a clip on the news about a new technology which is going to be removing salt out of water fairly inexpensively, from what I remember the clip about. And I guess my question is, how aggressively is the state or anybody working on some alternative to this massive water district that is looming in our future?
Well, one, I can't tell you that because I'm not in the inner workings of the DOT. I know that they're very concerned about the levels of contamination in these wells, providing them drinking water right now, bottled drinking water. So I know that they're very concerned. Jamie Andrews is his name, I believe, who's heading up this whole thing, said he was appalled by the levels that they picked up in the wells when we went and tested them. So I don't know how big the distribution system is. They said it could be right now about 15. It could go as high as 20 or more. So it's a distribution system talking about that.
I think we're getting off track again. We're just talking about doing an evaluation on this.
But I think looking about, looking at both sides of it, is there a value to us doing this, or is this gonna be a much bigger thing? And I feel like they
Well,
tested.
it's gonna be a bigger thing. We know that.
Oh, yeah, but I feel like the wells were tested in the area before we started this reconstruction of the road, and then we had blasting and all of those other things going on up there started the road reconstruction, and now we have more than double the amount of wells from the last time that we did a study.
Well, I don't know what study you're talking about, the last time we did a study.
Well, they tested the wells up in that area, and that's how when we first did this in 2011, like which
That
wells
was
were
Pinkham Cove,
affected.
right?
Route
Pinkham
11
Cove
too.
and
Or was it? I
Route
didn't-
11.
I didn't know.
There was 2 or 3 down on Route 11, but then they went to Pinkham's Cove, so. But,
Well, this is just a recommendation based on what DOT told me, it's up to the board to decide what they want.
okay,
Can I-
So this is another, you don't.
So is it your recommendation, Melanie, that we shouldn't pay this $70,000? We should, I mean, you can vote against it, obviously, but I mean.
I don't know, do we do that, or do we change the article and set up a fund for starting a well remediation, well contamination remediation fund, and we put $70,000 into that towards future expenditures towards Belgrade's portion of
I'm guessing
fixing,
that would be
fixing
the
what's wrong.
next step. I'm guessing that would be the next step after this.
yes.
You know, assuming that this study that is done by this amount and the state's amount determines what the solution is. Then, you know, from this study, they'll come up with a $500,000 $1 million figure, I don't know, whatever it might be.
Who knows?
Who knows what it will be?
Or this new technology could be finalized and
Yeah.
they'd be doing it in 10 now.
Is this one of those things that you do in order to eliminate different possibilities? So, there's 5 different possible things in doing this test.
Yeah.
We'll eliminate 2 of them, so you're able to narrow down what the actual cause is?
Yeah.
Is that the purpose?
It wasn't originally when they first presented it to the board, that wasn't quite how they were looking at it. They were looking.
All right.
So is the question that we don't understand the value of what's the content, the composition of the testing, or what do we get for the $70,000? Is that question here? That
No.
we just not,
I don't think that's the question that Melanie, they came and told us what they were going
Right.
to do.
right, okay,
The issue is, it's a much bigger problem.
Right.
And maybe, as I understand Melanie's point, maybe it's better to either not fund this right now and wait for a fuller explanation, or put some money aside to allow for us to fund it at some point in the future, or to get more information. So I think that's what I'm hearing Melanie say.
Yep.
You can do either. You could say, no, we're not gonna fund it. And if they decide that they're going to go worst case, and I believe that the DOT always tries to negotiate a settlement, so that's just my experience with the DOT.
We haven't been billed for this yet, have we?
No.
No.
This
But
is
we
a-
have
haven't done
signed an agreement.
To share in the cost.
Okay, so maybe the idea that, of reserving the money is the way to go. It shows good faith.
Yeah.
But it doesn't commit us to an amount
That's what,
unseen.
Yeah, you said you wanna make a motion, Melanie, to amend the article to make it a, you know, what do you wanna call it, a capital reserve or something?
Water remediation fund of the wells, decontaminating the wells.
My guess, when it comes to doing the well and the water thing that they're gonna build, you're gonna wanna bond it, cause it's gonna be a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
It's not gonna be a cheap thing.
So that's another step, that's.
Yeah, that's
down the
next
road.
year.
you could just say, we're not gonna address this.
But maybe we're thinking it's smart that we do, but I don't
I'm
know.
just
I think
saying.
it's smart that we do. I think we have to address it.
Well, we have to put it out to the townspeople anyway.
Yeah,
We
because
absolutely do.
That's not really our decision, I mean,
That's
it is
right.
what it is.
and we need to be prepared to take a lot of questions about this, because for a lot of people that come to that meeting.
Well, a
They
lot
don't
of them
know
will have
anything
the
about
same
this.
questions that Melanie has.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so, I like the idea of a reserve fund, but I don't think that we can ignore that we need to appropriate some money.
Then let's put it in a reserve fund, earmark for this, and go from there.
That's fine, you can raise and appropriate $70,000 for a reserved fund,
To establish.
to establish a reserve fund that will, be put towards or cover the cost of the hydrologic evaluations and potential remediation for a number of wells contaminated. You know, the rest of the article pretty much
Well, and I
explains
almost,
what it's for.
I almost feel, Kathy, like if we set up a capital reserve account, we don't wanna tie our hands as to what it can be used for, but we would set up a
Well, I
capital
think you've gotta
reserve.
talk about it being part of the salt remediation.
Well,
Just put
I
it to-
do as well, like, but we would call it like the,
You have to identify what's gonna be, the
Right.
reserve fund has to have
Yeah,
right, but I
identified
don't think this
purpose.
particular study has to be part of the.
Oh, right, not the,
reserve.
not the
Right, so
particular
I think
study.
we need to set up the account as establish a capital reserve for saltwater contaminated well remediation. fund.
There we go.
Sound good?
Yeah, just don't mention
Making
evaluation.
that motion?
Right, yes.
But we could spend it on evaluation.
Well, yes,
If we
We
choose
could,
to.
yes,
if then we're
yes,
gonna ask
reserve,
later down the
but
road
if
to
you put
appropriate
evaluation
so
in,
much
it'd be
out of
limited
that
to it.
account for blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Would you raise and appropriate or just raise, well, we would, we'd be
We wanna work
appropriating it
together
into
to
that
spend it,
account.
so.
Yep,
Okay, so the amendment that you're proposing is what?
To establish.
shall the town raise and appropriate $70,000 to establish a saltwater contaminated well remediation fund,
Reserve-
capital reserve fund,
I just say reserve that.
a reserve fund.
Somebody writing this down.
No, I wouldn't put capital in there because the letter we signed was for a study, isn't it?
We didn't
We didn't
sign
sign a
that
letter
letter.
for the study.
No.
The
signed
only
this
thing
for
we
well.
signed, Jack, was in 2011, we agreed with the initial couple of wells that were done, we agreed to Belgrade would split the cost of that with DOT. DOT is now, the scope of it is expanded much more, and they're
Well,
holding
the letter,
the 2011 letter as proof that we agreed to do 50%.
the way it's written, they believe that it specifies that the board has agreed to share the cost of remediating any salt well.
And anyway into the
for this
future.
related to the salt.
Okay, so it's not just for the study.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so that was the amendment?
So read it again, shall the town raise and appropriate 70,000 as,
No, no, as
To
description,
establish.
to establish a capital reserve fund
a saltwater or contaminated well remediation reserve fund.
Okay.
And-
It's been seconded.
Have you ever created a capital reserve fund that's been raised and appropriate in the same thing? Because every capital reserve fund that I know of, you have to go back and appropriate a dollar amount at a separate time.
From that fund.
Right, I've never heard of a capital reserve fund that's set up to raise and appropriate at the same time.
good point.
If you would like to bypass this, we've got another article that we're gonna have to come back to, and I'm sure there's gonna be other issues that we'll probably have to vote on at some point. So,
I
you
think
wanna
we're right
just-
if we just do raise.
Yeah.
Raise the money to establish the fund, cause that's what we're doing.
Okay. So that's what it is now?
Cause then we would have to go back
Why
and
don't
ask the
we let
townspeople
them
to
work on this
appropriate a
article
certain
and come
amount.
up with a good,
Yeah,
a good article that fit everybody's needs
Okay.
and move on with this. I planned on only going to 9 o'clock. So it's up to the guys, people here, what you'd like to do.
Just get done.
I kind of,
Well, we still have a lot of pages to go. Yeah.
well, some of it's gonna move right along, I think, but,
We're here till 10 o'clock.
well,
Yeah,
you
but
guys fine with it?
I'd rather do that than come back tomorrow. and tell you the truth.
No, I'm fine. Just-
Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Then let's take
keep
this article.
plugging along.
Okay, so are we gonna table this article then?
Let's table it, yes, and let Jenny work on a proper,
we'll look at what Dan was saying, because I really can't remember that. So we'll look into it, and then
yeah.
we'll come back with an article that establishes a reserve fund to resolve the salt well contingency.
Okay, well, I think we're-
I take a motion, I take a vote to table this,
Okay.
all in favor?
All in favor, table.
Thank you. Alright, Article
Okay.
30.
I will, no, I can be. Article 30, to see if the town will raise and appropriate from the income of the cemetery trust for the total sum of $42,350 to support costs of operation and maintenance of Belgrade cemeteries for 2019. 19. Itemized requirements are as follows. Personnel wages and benefits, 22,000. Services and contracts, 3,970. Supplies and materials, 6,350. Equipment and repairs, 8,030. Unclassified, 600. Flowers, 1,400. Total article is $42,350.
Is this one that we can do or not? We don't have numbers?
No,
We don't have to
certainly
put it in
don't have
there.
to put the numbers in, but we've done this every year where you go and if you're okay with the expenditures, that's fine, we just.
Okay.
The amounts, once we get the trust.
Someone wanna move that?
I'll move it. One second.
Then moved and seconded?
I just have a question.
You can ask. You got one. Yeah.
What was last year's, trust amount that we appropriated?
Well, the budget was 53,850.
Right, so I said there's,
$6,945 came from the trust.
What's that, Bill?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a vote. All in favor?
if we're tabling other articles, does it make sense for us to just table the ones and put the actual numbers in and then vote on it? Because we're gonna have to come back and vote on it again, once the numbers are in.
For the trust, you mean?
Yeah.
You know, unless you wanna look and, so that all you're looking at is the numbers that are in it versus the actual amounts. If you wanna discuss the amounts and make sure that you agree with the amounts that are in it. Otherwise, you'll be at another meeting discussing amounts.
Yeah.
It's up to you guys.
Let's do what we can.
So what are we gonna do? We're gonna vote on this or not?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll entertain a vote on this now.
Yeah, let's
All in
do it.
favor?
Yeah.
Thank you.
What committee? 6-0.
Thank you. Go right to committee one.
What do you want? See if the town will raise $2,500 and appropriate $2,500 from the income of the cemetery trust for a total of $5,000 to be placed into the cemetery capital water line reserve. The current balance of cemetery water, capital water line reserve is $22,387.14. The request is for $5,000.
Move, question.
I'll move the question, yes.
Okay, move in second. Any discussion? Dan?
We keep raising this money every year for this reserve. Is it ever gonna get spent?
Bruce said we haven't got enough money yet to do it.
Well, I think there is enough money to do
Okay.
it. We have had several ideas of where the water is gonna come from. We talked about the pond, we talked about coming here and seeing if we can pump it up to the cemetery. We really are at a loss because our water is salt water too. And I think the plan we have right at the moment, we're probably gonna shut it off next year and use water tanks.
Has anybody tested the water in the lake and the pond right now? I mean, is this salt that's getting into that pond?
You can taste it very easily.
In the pond?
In pond, no, pond, but that's too far away.
One thing to think of, and I heard this brought up when we were having that discussion with the state about the salt hydrogeological thing, is that, you know, if we're drilling wells around here and we need water at the cemetery, we might as well incorporate that into that, and potentially these funds could go towards that someday when that time comes. What that cost is, it's hard to say at this point. Adding another well to this, you know, well line that we're planning, you know, or this water system, who knows what it is, you know, it's hard to say. So I don't know, I guess the question is, do we continue to add money to this capital reserve through this article?
my estimation, I would say that we'd stop this article and, wait till see what all this water situation is gonna end up being.
Okay, do we wanna withdraw the article?
Is that what you're saying, Mr. O'Leary?
I'm saying, yeah.
Just exit out?
Okay,
Okay, we'll
good.
exit out.
Because the other thing we could do is
What?
without raising it, we could appropriate the 2,500. It puts a little bit more into that capital and water reserve account.
Oh,
What are we waiting
Do you
for?
want any in there?
we're waiting for the water.
I just wanted to, I didn't hear what he said about waiting for something.
Waiting for the test.
For the test, you know, what I was saying is that, you know, we don't know what this water system is going to be to remediate the salt wells. And if that's gonna happen in this general vicinity, then adding a well for the cemetery.
How dire is the need right now?
For water,
Sounds like you don't
people like to water their plots.
If I could just add to that, I get complaints every year about plants dying and trees dying, expensive plants, trees and shrubs.
That was my impression also.
So that's why they're looking at shutting down the water supply, and maybe going to tanks.
Right.
Well, what I'm getting at is this hydrological study and all this kind of, it's gonna be, frankly, we're looking at a long time up there. I don't see this happening in the next several years. So what I'm wondering is if we shouldn't proceed with the idea of getting the water from the pond in the interim, because you don't have the water for the cemetery.
It's only gonna be summer, months that you're gonna be able to use it, basically.
Well, how much, you don't need it in the winter.
Well, there's a lot, the townhouse, the main house, they're looking for water too.
Dan?
If Denny's getting complaints about expensive plants dying, why are people planting expensive plants? If they're planting them, they should be maintaining them. Why is it our responsibility to maintain their plants?
We have a well, we have water up there, they've always gotten water from the water line. It hasn't been, they haven't been informed.
Right.
That's what we're trying to get them informed.
I grew up in Windsor. I mowed cemeteries as a kid growing up. None of them had water.
No, I'm not saying that ours did, that's all I'm saying. I'm not.
We could change that.
Yeah, I mean.
So what are we gonna do with this article? They're telling us they don't need it anymore,
So let's get rid of it.
and let's just get rid of it.
For the moment.
Absent of a
Okay.
concrete
We're
plan,
gonna go tanks.
let's
So,
hold off on it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
fully or.
so we're gonna just put an X in it and we're done with it.
Now, just out of curiosity, how do you pay for the tank water? How would you pay for the tank water?
Well, we really don't.
We're gonna have 3 tanks, and we'll fill them up from the fire station or
Oh,
somewhere.
okay, oh, sure, okay, I get it. Yep, that works.
Okay, let's jump right to Article 32.
Okay, Article 32, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be placed into a Plan 5 capital reserve account for future surveying and construction of new cemetery lots. The current balance of Plan 5 capital reserve account is $20,000. The request is $5,000.
And then,
Second.
okay, any discussion? Yep,
What is the goal? What is the projected cost? Putting $5,000 into an account that's got $20,000, do we need to do the surveying and the construction? Do we need $100,000? Do we need, what do we need? The absence of
We're looking at
a
30.
plan.
We're thinking 30.
How much?
30 to survey it.
it's being done by an engineer,
That's
right. We've had to make some serious changes up there, so, I mean, I think it's Walmart parking lot, but that's okay. We'll do what we need to do. We've taken out most of the hill now. Just ran out of time again. I mean, we're doing it at a free cost, our part.
I understand that, but do we,
And it's
Phil's
meant-
saying, I think it's gonna be $30,000, is that, okay.
I mean,
That's the first time I've heard any kind of a number that we're shooting for. It just seems like we're just saying, put $5,000 in each year, but To go to where? To how much? For what?
Yeah, but we've been raising this money since 2014. That's the
People
earliest I
dying.
can find in the books. Why don't we come to the town with a proposal to do the job and the funding, funded in part by what's already in the reserve and about raise the balance if we have to and do it instead of keep reserving a small amount every year.
Anybody?
We can do it that way.
Do we have any idea what the cost is for the job, the whole job?
Why don't you get a hold of,
Yeah, I will.
and
There,
Elliot and see what he says?
So where does that leave us with this article? Are we tabling it, or are we doing away with it, or?
I would
I'll
say
show you.
we should at least do another 5,000.
That's what the proposal is, they want another 5,000.
And they'll come back with,
Yep, and talk to Elliot and see what he says, and we'll get together again. Okay, so any more discussion on this? Dan?
How soon do you think you'll be able to hear from the engineer? Because if he comes back and says that $28,000, we'll do the job, wouldn't it be smarter just this time to
Change it.
go 8,000? You know, if you can find out before the end of the year, this one would be an easy enough one to come back
just
to
increase.
and just.
It's
do
the
what you gotta
absence of that target that's bothering me about it.
Right.
I totally support the work that's going on up there. But the absence of a target that we're going after, that we have a handle on, just really just concerns me.
Can you get a hold of Elliot and see if work with Phil and come up with a number? We'll table this article, I guess.
I'll make the motion, we table this article.
Second.
All in favor?
Table. Article 33, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be placed into the cemetery equipment replacement reserve account for equipment replacement. The current balance of cemetery equipment replacement reserve is $10,000. The request is for $5,000.
Anyone wanna move it?
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
And move to second. This is something we started a year or so ago, I believe.
Right.
And
I still think we need.
How much has been spent out of it?
nothing yet, they haven't bought anything, I don't think.
It's a new truck, right?
No, this isn't the new truck.
This is the new truck.
This is for,
This is what they said,
Oh,
replacing the Walker mower.
We have
Yeah.
a
Cause they're talking like $20,000 for a walker
Yeah.
mower.
I think we need to
So that's
fund
why
this.
they,
The Walker that I understand, it will cost a significant amount of money so that it doesn't trail like it does.
Right, the hydraulics on it doesn't steer very well.
It doesn't track.
Well, how old is that? Because it seems like we just bought that new one when I was on the board last year.
That's a newer one, that's a 2011, I believe, I'm still.
that one's.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
And how much are these mowers?
$15, $20.
They're around 16.
They're expensive. So,
We just do a couple of John Deere.
no, these all run the John Deere's any day of the week.
Last one, this one just.
They're tough mower.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
moving right
How
along,
about
so
some
we're
goats?
gonna, any more discussion on this?
Seeing none, I entertain a vote. All in favor? Thank you.
Budget committee?
That one we need.
6-0.
Thank you. I guess we're down to.
Facilities and grounds, Article 34, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $206,163 to support town facility maintenance. Facilities, proposed for 2019, $114,200. CFAS, $28,692. NBCC, 5660, garage, 2200, salt and sand shed, 1150, fire department lakes, $6,005, fire department depot, 3,865, fire department North Belgrade, 4,000, $65, transfer station, $10,180, parks, $5,200, Dalton property, $14,786, dams, $420, history house, $325, town office, $15,915, vacant town office, $900, library, $600. The total request is $206,163.
Okay, anyone move it? Move it.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, what is facilities?
The top line, facilities, what is that?
It's by far the biggest number.
Everything like payroll and, like fuel for the, trucks and stuff, it's anything that doesn't specifically go with a building.
So it should be general rather than just facilities, because these are all facilities.
So you wanted to say general facility?
Just general.
General.
And what are dams? Why are dams in there when we have a dam committee?
The electricity, well, no, it's the electricity that comes out of it.
Okay, that's right, the dams would be good.
Gas, electricity?
What's the dam
The
for?
electricity for the dams.
Electricity for the dams, it might be a.
Isn't that paid for by the dams committee?
Apparently not. Apparently, we've always been paying that.
There's something on the warrant.
So we still have, under the Dalton property, we still have 5,000 in for heating, but I was under the understanding that the person who's living there now is paying for heating. So we increased that.
No, that's not. This past year, in the spring, actually, this spring, we had an issue with people skipping, putting heating oil in, and we had the facilities damaged as a result.
Oh, right.
We brought that issue to the board. The board said, Denny, work it out so that we pay heat and light and add it into the total overall rent. So we raised the rent to cover an analysis of heating and lighting and propane on those facilities, so that we could at least reserve cost on failure to fill the oil.
Any other questions?
One of them, yeah. Under Article 11, on the Belgrade Village Green, we have an estimated cost of $1,040. Shouldn't that be a line item under here?
We haven't got the property yet.
But we're talking about 2019.
It's
in under parks, the electricity that we budgeted for the village green is in
No,
under parks.
I'm just talking about for general maintenance under it. These line items are all the things that we have to take care of. We talked earlier in this meeting about taking care of some things on an ongoing basis.
Or free
when the
gazebo.
town owns it.
Right. But herein is the issue. We don't know when it's gonna pass. We were asked to estimate what it would cost if we had to maintain it, so we came up with the $1,000, $40 figure. And the third, I think, when the issue came up under the discussion of that particular article, we said that in talking with Les, we could absorb that at least for the first year because we don't really know. He estimates certain number of hours for his staff and stuff to do things.
Okay,
that's where it's at.
That's fine.
Next year, there will be.
As long as it's covered, as long as it's covered.
Dan, did you have your hand up? Hang on.
Thank you.
That's it, okay. Melanie?
Back under the Dalton property on page 5, we have $5,000 budget requested for the building. What is that for? It's up 2,000
What page?
Page 5.
Is that the one I'm just working on?
Yeah, it's the new one.
What's the article?
one?
What article is it?
Oh, I think that he wants to do, windows, change the windows.
Oh, yeah, the leaking windows is what I heard, right?
There's two windows there, like, the two large windows are Anderson windows, and they're actually the bottom sills are starting to rot out. So they're gonna need to be replaced.
So does the whole window need to be replaced, or do we contact Anderson for their warranty and we change out the sills at dramatically less money than $5,000?
That,
This is what,
I don't know when they were put in, if there's any warranty,
We haven't, they were,
Well, Mrs. Dalton, I mean, she was pretty good about taking care of what needed to be taken care of, she was on the cheap side of it, so I just wondered.
I can check with Anderson to see if it has.
Generally, if the seals are bad, they'll replace them, but if the
Yeah,
outside
this
of the
is,
windows,
the wood is actually
Rotting frame, Anderson's not gonna guarantee.
they're not gonna guarantee the frame, but
Yeah.
if the seals go.
So that's the question on the $5,000, okay?
And Kenneth Workman, the $3,000, is that considered a donation by the town? Because the Kenneth Workman Youth Sports
It's a
Association,
contract because the town owns the property, so we give them $3,000 to maintain it.
and they maintain.
And they maintain it, they pay the electricity, they take care of everything. I'm just paying $3,000.
And I don't have to know it.
Okay, anything else? Okay. No other questions, I entertain the vote. All in favor? Thank you.
Budget committee. 6-0.
Thank you.
Okay,
We've already done
we're gonna do Article
35.
35. See if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be placed in the facilities cemetery truck replacement reserve account for vehicle replacement. The current balance of the facilities cemetery truck replacement reserve is $20,000. Request is $10,000. Move the question, I'll move the article.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Only,
Go ahead.
not really on the article, but is there any way, we have several cemetery-related articles, could they all be put together?
I can talk about.
We just broke those down last year, you remember, right?
Apparently, I
Because
didn't
you might
remember
wanna
right.
break it down.
Apparently, I didn't remember right over the last.
And let's, the answer is no.
Yeah.
we can do whatever you want.
Never mind.
Mike, you can do whatever you want, but
No, never mind, I'm missing NCIS, will you get on?
Yeah, all right.
So can I ask, what do we think the cost of a truck is gonna be?
50,000, 60,000.
Yeah, you're up
I
around
would
50,
say
60.
somewhere in that.
That all depends if we can reuse plow or we can reuse sander, I mean, it all depends.
The sander probably, I would think would be okay at there, you might have to do some.
2 years, get rid of them. They're gonna cost,
Sanders?
they're gonna cost you money, believe me. I buy new sanders every 2 years. Yes, you can. For price.
So anyway, yeah, so this
That
is,
truck, the frame had to be, welded on the front, actually it was basically at the end of last year, the plow was dragging to get it into the
Typical General
garage.
Motors.
So they had to, weld the front of the frames. I'm actually surprised that it actually will pass inspection.
And how old is this truck?
It's 10 years old. Every time I take it out to plow, I have to take it back in and tighten up all the lugs, because they're loose.
Typical General Motors, do it every day.
That's what I've been told, but
Yeah.
it's kind of frightening to think that I could be going down the road and I look out the mirror and I see the wheel going down the road.
You can't get them tight enough without a pipe on it, believe me.
Yeah, no, I've been reefing on those and I can't.
Okay.
I'm actually thinking of trying to put some glue on them.
Sure. Okay, but so basically it's pretty clear we need to fund this, we're gonna replace these trucks.
At some point, you're
down the
gonna
line.
have to, I think it's just gonna, like, the wheels are gonna flatten out.
So
Any other questions?
Yeah, well, if a truck costs $60,000 and we have 20 in reserve and we're gonna add another 10,000, it'll be 3 years. If the prices don't go up, it'll be 3 years before we can fund the full thing. It doesn't sound to me like it's gonna last 3 years safely.
We may be able to do like we did with the other truck and deal with the state and be less money, but remember how,
What do you mean, like a
Ernie went and found the deal with a, what we could buy through the state and take quite a bit of money, so.
They had an extra one in their contract.
Yeah, you're right, we're not gaining.
They're not getting it.
Yeah.
I mean, the truck's worth something trading it in, but
Mhm.
it isn't worth $30,000, I can tell you that now. This may be a place where you wanna increase.
I don't know, something to think about. I would say we should pass it as it is. I don't know.
Well, if we can get by another year with what we've got, then I, from what I'm hearing here, we ought to really be thinking about doing the job.
You can purchase leasing too, so there's a bunch of ways to get one.
Yeah. Okay,
I didn't think to vote, I guess, on this. All in favor? Thank you, fine.
Budget committee? 6-0.
Thank you. We've already done 36, we've already done
okay, we did
37.
36, 37, see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $7,450 as support for general assistance. General assistance of $6,450, emergency fuel of $1,000, the total article at $7,450.
You wanna move the question?
Move.
Seconded.
And move in second, any discussion on this?
Yep. How much is in the emergency fuel account now?
I believe there's a little over 6,000, because we brought that back, as you remember the discussion.
And how much did we use for general assistance last year?
General assistance, I can't tell you the exact thing, but very little. Probably, you got it right there.
Well, I think I put it all this information in the.
So then what happens with that is, so if we don't use it, does that lapse into the undesignated fund?
Yes.
So why
It's
did
just
it
you
go up
never
this year?
know what you're gonna use, you never know, so that's been the amount that's been requested for God knows how long,
And we used $197.64
was that last year? From,
so far this year.
From general assistance.
Okay.
It's up $1,000 over last year, and you're saying we don't use it? Why did it go up?
We always ask for that amount in case we ever need it, because we have to fund it if we need it.
You have to fund it, we're required to fund any, so we don't know if we're gonna get someone to come in and say, we live here, and then suddenly
Paying their
we're
rent for
paying
1 year.
rent, or we're
I
paying.
think what he's saying is, it went up $1,000 from last year.
It did go up $1,000, the reason I did that is because, we had this, emergency fuel down with the next one down,
Okay.
with the Memorial Day and everything, and I didn't feel like the emergency fuel needed to be with Memorial Day and holiday stroll, so I brought it up to social services with general assistance. So it didn't go up, just the fact that we asked for $1,000 in emergency fuel was added to that.
Should we word it slightly different though, because if we now put the emergency fuel money into the general assistance account,
No, it's a separate one.
well, that's not what we're saying.
This is heating oil you're talking about, right? Emergency fuel.
Yeah.
Right, it's broke out, so the $64.50 is general assistance and $1,000 of it is emergency fuel.
Right, but they're two separate accounts, so the emergency fuel one, what I don't wanna see happen is that if we've designated this money for emergency fuel, it's already colder than it has been in past years at this time of the year. So I would hate to see us have what should go into the emergency fuel fund end up bouncing back into the undesignated fund if the total general assistance isn't used. So would.
Oh, no, it's two separate funds.
Yeah, but I see
General
what you're
assistance,
saying.
I do,
So
it's
should
not.
we do the raise and appropriate and this amount to go to this fund and this amount to go to this fund, just word it so that they're split out, or?
Yeah, I think that would be fair.
So have an extra article.
No, it just should, to see if the town will raise the appropriate sum of $74.50 as a support for general, with $6,450 as support for general assistance, and $1,000 to the emergency fuel heating reserve fund.
Yeah, I think if we word it that way, then.
So, did you just say there's $6,000 approximately in the emergency fuel fund? And we only used less
For
than.
general assistance, out of the general assistance, what the state pays, there are some people that go over what is allowed for general assistance, and I can't pay them out of the general assistance, but they have a need, unless I, so I try to support them using the rules.
But you've only used, you used less than.
For general assistance, but I've used, $300 or $400, I think, out of,
More than that.
I guess the question I'm asking, and I hear people thinking, is if we didn't fund the emergency fuel with $1,000 this year, we have $6,000 in it that we haven't really touched.
We don't have to fund it, we don't.
I mean, and you've said, well, we've just always done it, and
Well, we set up the fund because we set it up with a matching donation whatever years ago, because that year was crazy, it was like $11,000 or something.
Right, the year that we set up, emergency heating, it was back in 2008 when I was here, we were really,
It was a bad winter.
desperate year, so to speak.
Yeah.
And we had, for a lot of donations and stuff, a lot of this money was donated money and stuff like that, as the recession receded and all that, and the need went down. But anyhow, that's how that was set up. But, you know, you don't have to appropriate $1,000 a year.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got 6,000 in that fund and it doesn't lapse back into the designated.
You know, it stays right into that reserve.
Then, you know, and you didn't use 1,000 of it last year. I guess I'd make the amendment that we just drop $1,000 from this year, as a savings. Does that make sense? Anybody want to join me on that, or? I'll make the motion that we amend the article to just fund these $6,450 to general assistance.
So we're gonna do away with the fuel, emergency fuel
Yeah.
altogether.
This year.
That will make it easy, just.
Yeah. Just
Then we don't have to change the article at all.
Okay, we're just gonna strike the emergency fuel, and the total article is, 6450.
Okay, I'll second that. That's good. Okay?
Okay.
So we're gonna act on the amendment now, which is for 6450, with striking the emergency fuel. The article will read the same. So, all in favor of that? Now let's go back to the original article, the way it's written right now, with 6450, for just general assistance.
Okay, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $6,450 as support for general assistance.
Yep. Okay.
Second.
Okay.
Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor?
Budget committee? 6-0.
Thank you.
Okay, Article 38, see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $1,800 as compensation and support for the following social service divisions. Memorial Day, $800, July 4th, $500, holiday stroll, $500. Total article is $1,800. I'll move the article.
The move, are there a second? I'll second. Yep.
I have a question.
Yep.
What, is this for police presence? Is this what this?
And flowers for Memorial Day, like
Okay.
the wreath.
So we just had the holiday stroll. I set up the sheriff that came and you know, escorted the hay wagon.
They pay for it.
So you get 250.
And the I forget what the total is, but I mean, it's the bill is going to the Belgrade Business Group.
Oh, really? I'm okay with
No,
that.
no, but there's an agreement that we.
I know, but if you're paying the $500, then the bill should come in. Is that right? No?
No, I think there's an agreement, my memory serves me, that there's agreement that they will pay for one of these events and we pay for another.
Well, it says right here, holiday stroll, $500, so I'm just trying to.
It does, because last year Diane said it wouldn't hurt to ask the town to pay for all of it.
Okay, well, then
And I said, okay with that. And so we asked them last year and they paid for it all, and so we did it again this year. And it's really, because I didn't know that we had an agreement, and Diane wasn't
Well, I don't
coming
know.
with information to tell me that the business group actually paid something else.
That's why.
This is where Bruce Ford would jump out of his chair.
Okay, Bruce isn't here, so.
So I got it. Anyways,
If it was, I didn't know about it.
all right, so that's the explanation on this. Anybody got any questions?
I don't understand how it went down.
Because that $1,000 for the fuel was in it last.
Yeah, that was
Oh.
it last.
Gotcha. Well, but then it's so
Then
it
it's right.
actually went up 3 then?
Right, because the cost of the sheriffs went up.
other questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Budget committee? 6 of.
You know, I'd like to see, don't tell me we voted on this last year. We're already paying $4,500 for the fireworks, add another $500, so we're paying $5,000 in effect for fireworks. And I'd like to see next year to clarify that these events that are business group events are paid for by the business group.
Oh, this is traffic related stuff.
It's traffic that's brought about because of their event.
It's also a town event. I mean, the
Not
Fourth
a
of July,
Not a town
the
event.
Fourth of July parade, the whole Route 27 shut down.
Yeah, but when they sponsor the parade, it's their parade, it's not a town parade. Now, if you wanna pay a fine, we'll continue. That's my feeling. I'm sorry, did I say something funny?
No, I ain't said something you heard about the shutdown, the road shutdown.
Move on.
All right, let's
on
move
that,
on.
or did we vote on it? We did.
Yes, we did, that's something that we can probably bring up at a regular board meeting, we'll talk about it then.
Yeah. Okay.
That's, all right, let's go right into
So did
Article
we,
39.
did we approve it or?
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
It was,
Did you guys vote on that?
yes.
Budget committee?
Yes.
Yes, we did.
Trust activities, Article 39, to see if the town can make available to the principal of Belgrade Central School the interest in the amount of
We don't have it.
from the Robert A. Guptill Historical Fund for the promotion and appreciation of history. Don't have the figure.
That's probably gonna be a table.
I would table all of those ones.
Okay.
Any of those,
I'll make a motion to table Articles 39, 40,
Keep going.
41, what else is there?
We're really moving now.
And, well, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, hit 39, 40, and 41.
Yeah, we already did Article 42,
43.
so, and, so we're gonna move to Article 43.
Do we
See
need
if
to vote on the tabling?
Nah,
We're all in favor of tabling?
we're not going to.
you know,
I would hope that.
Since there are no
fine
numbers
with
here.
it. Just make a note, we tabled those. This is Article 43, to see if the town will raise and appropriate, what was that, Ben?
I said, I'm glad I swung through the house and fed the dogs.
Yeah, okay. To see if the town will raise and appropriate $79,950 to pay general liability and casualty, workers' compensation, unemployment, and health reimbursement administration fees for municipal employees. They requested $79,950.
I hear that.
I'll move that article.
So moving to second, any discussion on this? Seeing none,
How'd that manage to go down?
wow, we've had some good employees, I heard. I don't know.
It is, the HRA claims went down, technically, we had this conversation last year, if you remember, we're supposed to be, funding 40,500, but based on our experience ratings, we budgeted 16,000. Well, we didn't even spend close to 16,000, so I moved it down to 10,000 this year.
Based on experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
so I'm sorry, how high do you think that 79,950 is above what we're gonna need to spend?
How far, above what we're going to spend?
Well, you asked for 85 last year and you spent 67. Now you're asking for 79.
Well, we don't know because we don't know who and how much they may ask for reimbursement from the health reimbursement account as one item. So you put what you think you're gonna do in and you do less. That's part of the experience that we should talk about. Because we get a better handle on how many people are going to use it or how much they're gonna use.
We never know who's gonna get sick and have to be.
So we have to have something in there. Last year, we put more than we should have, we think. That's why we reduced it this year, because it was less.
Okay.
Could we reduce it further?
Not right now, I wouldn't feel comfortable.
We've spent about $5,000 so far this year.
We'll be back, don't worry, we'll be over these again, I'm telling you right now. That number is way too high at the end, guaranteed.
Well, that's what we're cutting.
You're not cutting enough, I can tell you right now.
Gotta start it.
Cut it now.
Okay, so,
We're ready to, any more questions on this?
is there any desire to drop the figure at all, or no?
I would not yet.
Okay.
No, No, we haven't
We haven't
voted yet.
voted either.
So I would entertain a vote on this.
Okay, here we go.
No, we
We
haven't.
haven't.
All in favor?
Now's your chance.
Thank you.
Budget committee,
Yes,
6-0.
thank you. Let's jump right on to the next one.
Okay, debt service, Article 44, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $105,393 for the combined 2019 debt service broken out as follows. Final year payment on the sand salt shed 10-year bond at $55,500. Fourth year payment on the Newtown office 13-year bond at $49,893. The total request is $105,393.
We can fight on this one if you want for a while, but it's probably not a good idea.
I don't think
Not
we
really.
can. We can't fight on it.
Somebody wanna move it?
Yes.
I'll second it.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion on this?
I like the idea of putting both of these, or any of these, in one article as bullet points. And I think the same thing can be done with trust activities in the future.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, I entertain a vote on this. All in favor?
What's that?
Budget committee, 6-0.
Okay, Article 45, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to pay interest charges and costs associated with the tax anticipation note in 2019.
Question.
$50,000.
To move.
I'll move the,
Okay, anybody second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion on this?
So hopefully this is one we can reduce on the
Yeah, we're
town
consistent
meeting.
with what we're doing, yeah.
Okay, that's done. All in favor? Thank you. 5-0.
Budget committee, 6-0.
Article 46, to proceed with voting on following question. Shall the town of Belgrade vote to accept any unconditional gifts, donations, pass-through funds, or any other funds that may be provided by individual businesses, business associations, charitable groups, or other organizations which have not been listed in any other articles, if the Board of Select Persons determines that the gift, donations, pass-through funds, or other funds and their purposes are in the best interest of the town.
Okay, this one here, just to select people vote on this one, I guess.
Yep.
We don't
Yeah,
have to.
article.
And the,
Anybody wanna move it?
I'll move the article.
Been moved and seconded.
Okay, any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor?
Okay, contingency articles, Article 47, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $31,493 to support the cost of salaries until March 31st, 2019 for the Recreation Department. Article 39 is required if Article 3 is defeated. The request is for $37,446.
Yeah, like that's different. So I'll move it.
Yeah, why is that different?
We'll move it and second it, and we can talk about it.
Oh, okay,
I moved.
okay, second.
Okay, now it's open for discussion.
Why is that amount different?
It's 31,493 and 37,496 here.
Wages and.
Oh, yeah, it is the right, the 37,446 is correct.
This is the correct amount?
I didn't change it up, I didn't change it on the next one, but yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
You,
Seeing none, we're gonna act on it as with a change in there.
okay.
All in favor? Thank you.
Budget committee, 6-0.
Okay, contingency article, Article 48, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $17,527 to support the cost of salaries until March 31st, 2019 for the library. Article 40 is required if Article 4 is defeated. The request is for $20,524, which
Needs to be changed in that.
is the correct amount, needs to be changed in the article.
Move that article.
I'll second that.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Any
Which is the
discussion
correct
on this?
amount?
25, 24.
25-24.
Yes.
At 25.
So, if there isn't, we will vote on it as being changed on the article. So, all in favor? Thank you.
Budget committee? 6-0.
The next one we can't vote on until we
You
get.
can't vote on, but I'll give you a rough estimate of what the current, this coming year's tax levy limit is. It's roughly $1,450,000, roughly. I say it's roughly because I haven't got the final revenue numbers, so I can't, offset some of that money if you go over the anticipated revenues versus the actual.
Yep, go ahead.
You're all finished?
Yep.
I just wanna make sure that I'm clear on what needs to be done. We have to resolve the issues with the road maintenance article, which I'll do, and I'll provide this information by email to the budget committee and the board, we can vote on this at, another future budget board meeting. I have to, rewrite, to establish a contaminated well, reserve fund, with $70,000 in it, so I have to rewrite that. And come up, and I'll pass that language out prior to the meeting so that anyone that has comments can make them. And then, I'll call Claire to come up with, Phil, an estimate to complete the surveying of that property. Is there anything else, other than the changes you made by amendments, that I need to do? Relevant to this, you got to deal with this. Well, that's gonna be coming forward, yeah, I know that comes forward. Okay, so we'll revise that. The one thing that I'll remind you of, that there is a series that I'm trying to get together for you as soon as possible of changes to the forever articles, so that we can drop those at some point in time that are in the book and move these other ones in, to avoid complications. And there's a appeals board ordinance that'll be coming to you for you to review. We tried to get it up last meeting, but it didn't work out. So you'll be looking at the next meeting, and that will be referendum question 2 if you approve the move it forward.
I wanna thank you all, and,
Thank you.
Thank you.
got through it one night. I think we did well. We got some things to back through, but thank you guys very much, appreciate it. And, entertain a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
I don't think so.
Yeah.